This is the standard. This is the work. This is the mindset behind the results. Built, not bought, earned, not given. This is the room where leaders are different. Built through consistency, proven through execution. Hosted by Michael Sweigert. Inside the champion's herd. At ALCOVA Mortgage.
Welcome to Inside the Champion Circle, powered by ALCOVA Mortgage. Your host, Michael Sweigert, sits down with top producers, industry leaders, and some of the most well-known mortgage influencers in the world and engages them in high-level conversations on what it takes to be elite in the mortgage industry. ALCOVA Mortgage, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS ID 40508. Michael Sweigert, NMLS ID 1240868, NMLSconsumeraccess.org. Terms and conditions apply. All loans subject to credit approval. Grab a drink, put your headphones on, and enjoy this week's guest, Ryan Charles.
Right. Oh, that's so funny. But anyway, Ryan, thanks for joining. Thanks for joining the show. And it's, I think, the only person I ever asked, how's the weather up there? And not because you're, and I'm above you. I'm in Ohio, but you are. How tall are you? 6'7", 6'8"?
6'8". Yeah.
6'8". That is wild. How old? When did you like? This has nothing to do with mortgages, but when did you like sprout? Because like, were you always tall as a kid, or did it like just happen one summer?
See, that's the funny part. I didn't have that crazy spurt. I was a very steady grower. In fact, the funniest part about me is my shoe size followed my age until I was 17. So when I was 13, I wore 13s. When I was 15, I wore 15s. So, but I never had that crazy, 7-inch summer or anything like that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it depends who's asking. If it's a cute person, I'm gonna be like, I'm 6 foot, right? Like if it's some lady, how tall are you? I'm 6 foot, but I'm only 5'11". It's actually.
Well, I used to be 6'9". I've already lost an inch, so
Yeah. Well, there's some people like okay, so I'm actually closer to Akron, so big LeBron James fan. Okay, and I guess he like grew like from like 5'6" to like 6'8" in like a summer and just shot up. So I always thought like maybe, that was the story. Like, oh, you just happened to one day get tall. I'm waiting for that day for me to happen.
I played college ball with a kid who did that. He was like 6'2", and he was a point guard, and then he grew 6 inches and ended up, well, I guess he was 6 feet because he ended up being 6'6", and he had the same ball handling skills at 6'6" as he did at 6 feet, and it made a huge difference for him. Yeah. But not me. Oh, slow and steady wins a race.
It's like the modern day NBA, right? All these guys are 7 foot, and they can dribble the ball and play every position. Yeah. So you big basketball fan your whole life?
Yeah. Probably more than most. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So in about a week or two here, that Thursday and Friday, I'm not going to get much work done.
March Madness.
Opening 2 days of the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely. I feel like it's almost like the day after the Super Bowl needs to be a national holiday, but it doesn't need to be, because I feel like it's the borderline has to be one of the most productive days at the office because you're planning to not be productive, right? Yeah. Every single year it's on, like, we're like, oh no, we're not going to be productive. We're ordering wings. We're going to watch our brackets. In Ohio, we have sports betting now. So it's like, oh, we're going to watch our bets. And then all of a sudden the phone's going off the hook and you're like, I missed all those games. I missed every single game. Yeah. So
most of my clients are probably watching the games too. So for me, I just kind of busted out until about 12:15, and I'm like, all right, it's going to be intermittent until tomorrow.
Fair enough. All right. Well, yeah. So you're based down in Richmond, Virginia, and you're bragging because it's 84 degrees. So congratulations.
84 degrees and sunny.
Yeah, you must just rub it in. You guys have, everybody down south has been complaining about, the snow. There's been snow on the ground in Ohio since before Thanksgiving, and we just finally the mounds are they're gone. Like, you'll still see some, but yeah, it's been a rough winter for us. So I feel bad for you.
The worst winter I can remember here too.
Yeah. Well, and it makes it like tough. Yeah, not 84 degrees. It makes it tough for real estate, and that's one thing that I think that a lot of people across the country don't realize is, like, in Northeast Ohio, like, we had a stretch where it was like sub-zero, like -20, wind chill, -30, where kids weren't having school. We had 2 feet of snow, and the last thing that we want to do, and as a first-time home buyer or somebody who wants to list their house is transacting real estate. So it's like we always put real estate almost gets put on the back burner throughout the winter up here because it's I'm not going to go trek through 2 feet of snow and it's too cold to go look at a house and not transacting. So we always have to kind of like prep for that when we're business planning at the end of the year. Like, all right, we're coming into that season where it's like, all right, it could be hit or miss. It could be 50 and 60 degrees all winter, or it could be, that negative 20 and snowing. So you guys may have had that this year.
Yeah, in our business, it usually gets kind of quiet after Thanksgiving because then everyone's prepping for Christmas and then you got New Year's and it's usually how fast does it warm up? Like as soon as we have some days like today, things start really picking up. So somewhere about 2 weeks ago, like the light switch goes on. But yeah, it's the quiet season, December, January, sometimes most of February.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's I'm ready for warmer weather. I could speak for all of the basically above the Ohio River. We're ready for some warmer weather. So now down in Richmond, how long have you been a loan officer? How long have you been in the industry?
Let's see, 48 years old now, and I got into business in 2005. So 20 years.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
21 years this year.
I love when people would say that like they got it in 2005 because you saw like I always make jokes. I always get in every industry I get into. Like right when I got into banking, from all the old bankers, they'd be like, "Oh man, you should have heard." I didn't mean to call you old there, but you should have been in the industry.
Old and wise.
There you go. So you should have been, been in the industry 20 years ago. The things that were happening is crazy just to see. And then, I love hearing the stories from loan officers getting the business in 2005, 2006, and the stuff that was happening. But what's nice is that that the loan officers that are here now that are making a career out of it, we're doing things the right way in 2005, like when you started learning the business the right way because you survived that crash. So if you could, and this is I did not let you prep for this question, but if you could say what is like the biggest glaring difference between, and don't say underwriting, but from 2005 when people were purchasing homes to now, like what's the biggest difference?
Technology.
Yeah,
by far. When I first got into business, we used to print docs and I used to have a little check mark stamper and stamp next to where people are going to sign. And there was I don't remember when Zillow came out, but there weren't a lot of like online resources. And technology's got to be the biggest difference between now and then.
Yeah, which has made it easier, not just on the consumer, but also the lending aspect. And even myself, getting in the industry. So I've been in banking since 2014. I've been in the mortgage industry, the independent mortgage banking industry since 2016. And I still remember the printing the docs, and we had that online portal, but nobody still used it. And the printing the docs and the back and forth, and how much of a headache. And just actually, I saw a reel recently on Instagram, and it was a loan officer like saying like when you finally get to the finish line, and it was like from a movie where it was like a big fighting scene and somebody was getting beat up, and it was like it said like the first time home buyer, and it's like we've all had those deals where it's like you're limping to the finish line, and I'm sitting here thinking like, I haven't had one of those type of transactions in quite some time.
Good.
and it really got me thinking, right? And as much as I say, like, I give kudos to like ALCOVA, but the tools that we have here, it almost just like eliminates all of those problems. And I always said, like, if you have one of those, like, because everybody says, oh, when I bought my first house, it was a nightmare, the process. And I'm like, 9 times out of 10, it was probably something that should have been caught at the beginning that wasn't, or that maybe wasn't taken care of. But I feel like technology and having the right technology and the right people behind it, and I always brag about ALCOVA having that. It's like it eliminates that, and it makes that mortgage transaction so much smoother for not just the client, but also the loan officer, which in turn reflects on the client.
That's right. Yeah. Technology and the people behind the technology. You're exactly right.
Yeah, and embracing it too. So how has that been the hardest for you? Like I sound like I'm calling you an old guy here, but is that
I am, and I'll own it. And I'm actually kind of proud of that, to be honest with you. To me, nowadays you got to be careful not to use too much technology. I think that's the key. And I always live by the golden rule. Really, and people always say like, what makes you tick, and like, what gets you out of bed, and it's really just treating people how you want to be treated. And so technology is great if it can help the transaction, but not if you're avoiding building a relationship or creating trust. And, this, for so many people, a mortgage is the biggest financial transaction they'll ever make in their life, because a mortgage is just a financial tool. So if you're working with somebody who doesn't really understand how things work, or even worse, doesn't care, which, there's a lot of bad actors in our industry, then people don't stand a chance. They don't know any better. I mean, some of my clients are way smarter than I am, but they don't understand how this process works, because how would they? You know what I mean? There's so much, and I always tell people this: the smarter you are, sometimes the more challenging you'll think this is, because common sense flew the coop back in 2008 to 2010 when everything, got tore down and built back up. So, so much of what we do is non-intuitive. So I warn my clients on my first calls when I had with them, like, all right, so be careful, because if you're trying to make this make sense, it might not, because a lot of people don't know this, right? But mortgages, for the most part, are a checklist-based business, right? So, I've had clients who can check all the boxes and could get the loan, and quite frankly, really are kind of pushing it. And, I'm talking to them like, you sure you want to do this? You can do it, but if that's what you want to do, but be careful, and giving them caution. And then I've had clients who could easily afford it and maybe can't get the loan for whatever reason, right? Unique circumstances, can't check the box. Now there's starting to be more products out there to serve those people. But for the longest time after the crash, there really weren't any kind of products for that. There was a void there.
Yeah. And I try to tell everybody that's good. I've never thought of it that way. Like it's a checklist. I always say, prove it. That's it. Right. Well, I make $150,000. I'm like, I see that, but the only way to prove that you do is to check your tax returns. And if you're not claiming it on your tax returns, or if you're writing off expenses, well, technically you're not making that. You're making, now there's stuff we can add back in. And I'm glad that you mentioned like the products, because we have a whole just portfolio of products that we can, look at if normal conventional guidelines aren't going to fit. Right. Yeah. But that's what it is. It's like the prove it game. And, common sense says like, yeah, absolutely. I agree. I 100% agree with you. I see how you're utilizing our tax code. I understand that. But at the end of the day, it's proving that we make this. It's proving that this was deposited. I understand that the number, you don't trust banks and you're putting money in your safe at home, and that's the best way for you to save. But at the same time, you have to prove it wasn't, money laundering, or it wasn't, the Patriot Act says we have to source that. So it's, somewhere along the line, somebody ruined it for somebody, and that's why we're doing what we do, right? So that's a very good way to put it. And some of the stuff that, again, like the headache, like this has changed in just the past 2 to 3 years. And I'll bring up a point that you said, where like, we're not getting a mortgage very often, but if you bought a home and you got a mortgage 2 years ago, it's completely different now. Right. Yeah. It's that not just the market, but the way that we're transacting. And, some of the tools that we have is that second that you fill out our application through our app, it's like, we've already verified all the assets. We've already verified your income with your employer. All that stuff that used to give us a headache for 3 weeks just took like 2 minutes and came over, and it's already verified. Right?
Yeah. The technology is really, going exponential now. And that's what I mentioned. I think one of the keys is, you got to be careful with sometimes utilizing too much of that, Sure. So, and that's spoken like a true old man now, but as long as you got to read your client base, right? If they want that you can give it to them. And if they want to have, a lot of times they just need a line and they need to know you care. But you just can't take too much for granted, because, I get flooded with like, use AI to outsource this, use AI to outsource that. And I'm like, well, that sounds good and all, but I'm actually going the other direction with that. I like phone conversations. Now back in the old days, I used to meet 100% of my clients in person, right?
Same.
But I mean, again, this is many years ago, and no one really wants to do that. I don't say nobody. Very few people actually want that these days. But I do insist on having a first call, very qualitative, not talking about anything in an application, because that's going to be defined in black and white. But, what are your challenges? What are your concerns? What's your timing? These are all things that don't show up in an application that are, to me, equally as important as the X's and O's that do show up in the application.
Yeah, in a technology-driven world, I still require every single client of mine, if they're getting a pre-approval, if they're refinancing, we are jumping on a Zoom call.
Hmm.
And, I used to meet every single person in person, whether it was at my office, at Panera Bread, I've done McDonald's, I've done at a golf course, I've done, I've met people in some pretty bizarre, at a hospital because they're having a baby, and they're like, "Oh, we're sitting here for 36 hours. You want to, can we come sign our documents there?" I'm like, I
They
don't want
need
to
a
do
bigger
that.
house. They're getting a bigger
Yeah,
family.
that's what I said. I'm like, maybe we should. Yeah, absolutely. So that part has changed, and what's nice is still being able to have that face to face with clients because. Yeah, you're right. There's the technology takes that out of it, and people just think like a mortgage is a one size fits all. And I'll just grab this. Here's my interest rate. Got it. Like, how many times that I've talked to somebody and showed them, hey, it's actually financially better. This is something that I've been posting on my social media lately. Instead of putting $60,000 down on a $300,000 house, why are we not putting $30,000, using that other 30,000, putting it in something that's a financial instrument? I know the S&P has averaged almost 11% return over the past from 2014 to 2024.
Hmm.
So why would we not maybe put that in that $30,000 in a financial instrument, and in 10 years you have $82,000, but you would only pay $22,000 on the interest, right? I know I just
Hmm.
threw a lot of numbers out there, but having those conversations in person, it's able to hear your challenges, hear your goals. Maybe they're not planning on staying in this house very long, whatever it may be. But yes, using that technology to make the process easier, but making sure we're still having those those conversations, those connections, because that's exactly what we're here for.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's the lifeblood. I mean,
that's
people putting their trust in you to get it done right. And, I always say it's like a duck under the water. They say, oh, that's the biggest compliment we can get in this industry is at the end, they say, everyone said getting a mortgage is hard, but it wasn't hard at all. Like,
yeah.
okay, good.
Yeah.
It may or may not have been hard, but if I insulated them from anything that they thought was hard, then I probably did my job right.
Yeah. And the one thing too, like, so going back to the whole like AI and technology, how it's changed even for our borrowers, our customers, not they, but people used to pay 10 years ago. They would pay for information, right? So they would go to an expert, they would go to a professional like us, or they would go for information. Now I can use AI, I could use ChatGPT, I can go and get information. I don't need information anymore. I know I can put 3.5% down on a mortgage. I know that I can look up what PMI is. Nobody cares about that anymore. What people are paying for and spending their time and getting in front of somebody is for knowledge. So Barry Habib said that the people are no longer paying for information, we're paying for knowledge. And being that advisor, using technology to show them and be that advisor, and still having that initial, that face to face, or having that conversation and still being personal like you talked about, that's where clients are going to keep coming to us, and we have all the tools, all the technology, all the cool stuff to make that process easier. Where maybe when you started 2025, or I'm switching, wow, 2025, 2005, we didn't have that option. Or even in 2015, we didn't have that option. We used to give them knowledge, give them information, and then still sign here, sign here, sign here, sign here, sign here, sign here. And I even remember when they came out with like that Paperwork Reduction Act, where the closing documents used to be like this, and then now they're like this, and it's still that mundane process. And so it's I feel like the mortgage industry is in such a good spot, and Alcova, we're on that cutting edge of it to not only make the life easier for the loan officers, but also clients, where they don't have what it was like trying to get a mortgage 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing worth stressing here is Alcova is, I call them the small ship in the sea, right? So, and it's not the ocean liner. And what I like the most about our leadership is the ability to pivot when needed. Because if you're a big ocean liner, how long does it take to turn that boat?
Yep.
A long time versus, a couple of years ago. Well, let's use COVID, for example. Who could predict that was coming, right? And then all of a sudden, not to go too far down a rabbit hole, but like people weren't buying loans. And so, we have to shift gears and start servicing our loans. And just the ability to do that kind of stuff is huge, right? Mm-hmm. So you're talking about supporting a loan officer. We didn't shut off for a day, so, and that's important, that we have the ability to pivot like that as needed, because you can't always plan for everything. Like you can't plan for a pandemic and, all the crazy things that we've seen in the last, few years. Well, look at us right now, like we're in the middle of a war, right? So
Yeah.
that throws us a curveball, and so all kind of stuff, So all you can do is have the right tools and be on the right team, and then trust that the leadership's going to do what they need to do to allow us to have success. And well, gosh, I've been here for 13 years now, and actually a lot of people don't know this, but I've been to ALCOVA 2 different times. You probably didn't know that, but
I did not know that. Okay.
yeah. My first stint was short-lived, and then I left, and then I saw the light, and I came back, and I can't picture myself ever leaving again at this point. But
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I did not know that. So, it is, I always hate the adage, like if the grass is greener, it's always greener on the other side. But that's one thing. And like Jason Helmenthaler and I talked about on the last podcast, where we said that, it's almost like, leadership at ALCOVA, is always constantly looking to make the process easier for clients, make the process easier for loan officers. And there's the structure that we have is, having 2 engineers and a loan officer at the helm of the ship, right? It's like, the loan officer's like, hey, this sounds good, that we want to do this. I want to make it easier. He's on the front lines. And then the engineer's like, all right, let's put it into play and see how we can make it work, right? So they always give us that edge to be competitive in our marketplace, and also clients getting the best rates and the best experience, where that it's not passing it on to them, or where they talk about the triangle of business, right? Speed, quality, and price. You can't have all 3. We're not pushing like crazy costs where we have seen in this industry, and then those lenders go by the wayside, right? So we're on the cutting edge, and I like your analogy. I like that the big ship takes forever to turn around. That's a good way to put it.
yeah, sure does.
It's a good one. So I did talk about being competitive. So you are a very competitive person. You are.
I'm mellowing out a little in my old age, but yes, I
keep bringing up this whole old age thing, man. All right. Well, so you played basketball. Everybody in this industry, I think, like when you're successful in the real estate industry, especially the mortgage industry, or being a real estate agent, you have to have that competitive side. At the end of the day, when we strip it all back, it's sales. I argue every job is sales, but we won't get into that one. But at the end of the day, it is sales, and you have that competitive edge. You played, so we talked a little bit about it, playing basketball your whole life, but you played collegiate basketball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what's the old adage? Isn't it like 1% of high school athletes go on to play at the collegiate level, and then less than 1% collegiate athletes go to be professional or play at a professional level, or something like that?
Yeah, I think when you look at the numbers, it's kind of amazing. I didn't quite make the NBA, but I was on a few teams' radars, and I was watching the draft really close in the second round, because I thought,
no way.
Maybe, just maybe. But
Okay.
I went overseas for a few years, and I held on to the dream as long as I could. And yeah, it helps to be 6'8", that's for sure. You can't teach that. But yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of work ethic, and you got to stick to it. Like I've got 2 young girls now, 13 and 9, and my 13-year-old takes after me. She's going to be a small giant. And she's into volleyball, and, I'm constantly preaching to her, like, you got to get out there, you got to touch the ball for how many hours a day. And, and nowadays, I think that the kids have a lot more distractions, like,
Oh, absolutely.
the coolest thing I had when I was young was like Mike Tyson's Punch Out, and nowadays you turn on the video games, you can't even tell what's real and what's fake. So
Yeah.
they got a lot of distractions, but, I love to see when they're athletic. I coach my younger daughter's basketball team, so I'm trying to get them, one's a volleyball player, one's a basketball player. I just love to see him being active and getting out there, and,
Yeah. Well, absolutely. But so you played college at you said at Radford?
Radford. Yes, sir.
Radford. Okay. So now, did you play? They're Division I, right? Division I for
Division
basketball.
I. Mm-hmm.
So did you by chance get to play in the NCAA tournament?
Did in 1998. Yeah.
No,
we
okay.
got to play Duke in the first round.
Oh, so against Coach K.
Yeah, I got to shake Coach K's hand, and
Okay.
And we found out something that day. We found out that Radford's first team was as good as Duke's second team, because we actually tied them in the second half, and they did not play their starters in the second half.
Hey, you were there. You were there, right?
It was the first time in Radford history that we made the NCAA tournament. We got to travel to Lexington, Kentucky, which you really have to be a basketball fan to know this, but years prior, Christian Leitner hit a shot to kick Kentucky out of the tournament. So the people in Lexington take their basketball very seriously, and they can't stand Duke because of what Leitner did to them. So when we played them in Lexington, we didn't play Kentucky. We played Duke. Boy, the Lexington fans, they didn't even care who we were. They were like, go, whoever's playing against Duke. I mean, every time we scored, the whole gym went crazy. So it was kind of fun. There's 30,000
That's got to be,
people there. It's amazing.
yeah, I was going to say, that's got to be a cool atmosphere. Yeah, Lexington's huge
cool.
with the college basketball. Yeah, absolutely.
They don't like Duke.
Okay, noted. Well, so what was you guys had to have a really good season then, obviously, to make the tournament. Just, I don't follow college basketball as closely as everybody else, but I just know, like, we're, again, being by Akron. Akron's always been a pretty good basketball school for the MAC, but, even the MAC champion, they get an automatic bid, but nobody else from the MAC, they can win 30 basketball games. Like, they're talking about, Miami of Ohio this year going undefeated, and if they or if they don't win the MAC championship, are they not going to the tournament, right? Winning almost 40 games. And so you guys had to absolutely have a good season, right?
Yeah, Big South the same way. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. If you're in a small conference, you should win your tournament. And if you don't, then maybe you don't deserve to go. Now, going undefeated is a different story. But, I haven't looked at their strength of schedule if they're not playing anybody. But I think a major team that beats a lot of other really good teams probably would beat, a smaller team. But I will say that there's a lot more parity these days. Back when I played, like, for instance, 16 seed, which we got to play Duke in the first round. It was a 1 seed. And they beat us by 35, and they were favored by 32. So we did exactly what we were supposed to do.
Okay.
Nowadays, you see a lot more parity. And, the game's changed, right? Now we got the transfer portal, and you've got players who played at UConn last year now playing at, whatever, right? Radford, so there's a lot more parity now. It's a complete different game. So 16 seed can actually beat a 1 seed. In fact, they have in the last few years.
Yep. I remember that was big, big breaking news. So let's go to yourself. So when did you realize, let's go back to high school, that maybe I'm good at this basketball thing and I need to make a conscious effort that it's going to take me somewhere? Because obviously it took you somewhere. You think of it this way. I know you said that you were like waiting for that phone to ring on draft day in the second round. You got paid to play basketball at some point in your life, meaning that you are a professional basketball player. So you were the elite of the elite of the elite. And when do you realize, or is there that moment that it like clicked, like, hey, I'm gonna have to change the way that my life is right now because I'm gonna go to the next level and I'm taking this serious?
Well, that was always my dream. I always wanted to play in the NBA. That was my whole thought. And I didn't know if I'd ever make it there, but, I guess by my freshman year of college, I didn't barely get on the court at all. And I didn't deserve to, because I was painfully thin. And then by my sophomore year, I'd gained 25 pounds, and I was like the 6th man at the beginning of the season. And by the end of the season, I was one of the best players on the team. Then we had a big graduating class. That was the year we went to the tournament. We had a big graduating class, and then it just cleared the way. And for the next 2 years, I was the captain and kind of big fish, small pond. I don't want to brag too much. It's not like I was starting on an ACC finalist or anything like that. But we had a lot of fun. And in my senior year, I guess it was probably, 6, 7, or 8 games into the season, I was actually this is not a lie, I was the leading scorer in the nation. Out of all Division I athletes, out of all Division I basketball players. And so I still have the printout, because like I sent it to my daughter the other day because I told her that, and she's like, "No, like, I'll show you, I'll prove it to you." And I sent her to her. She's like, "Oh my God, Dad, you were leading the nation in scoring." So at that point, I realized that basketball wasn't going to end at the end of my college days, and then I didn't know, I guess, how far I would really go until there's something called the Portsmouth Invitational Tournament. I don't know if it still exists, but it did back in the day, where the top 50 graduating seniors get invited to this NBA showcase thing. Now, the best players don't go because they don't got anything to prove. They got everything to lose. So maybe you take out the best 10 or 15 players. Lottery picks don't show up at this. But all us other guys show up. And I will say that it was a very humbling moment. Out of those 50 guys, I was probably a solid 25th. And I remember calling my mom that night and be like, "Well, I'm going overseas. What do you mean? I'm like, these guys are good. And, you know, the other funny thing is they like to embellish size a little bit. And they used to call me 6'10" at Radford. And I actually thought I was, you know, because I mean, they called all of us taller. And then I showed up at this Portsmouth tournament and I'm like, this guy's 6'10". And I'm like, oh, like, then I'm not. So, yeah, it was humbling. And, you know, and that's when I realized that, but you know, overseas was a ton of fun. I got to play in a lot of countries and it kept me from working for many years. And I got to live the dream way more than most. So no complaints.
Yeah. I mean, now the world has opened up so much from basketball. And like you hear arguments all the time, like, you know, the best players in the NBA now are from overseas, right? International players. And everybody's like, oh, it's because the game has evolved. And, you know, I'm like, or is it because we're now recognizing talent at a young age and we're giving them the opportunity to come play because the world is now so much smaller than it used to be. And we can, you know, easily, you can upload a video and the whole world watches it now, as opposed to, you know, back in even the 2000s and into the 2010s. And it was harder for that technology was a little, not
we
as
used to have to send out VHS tapes and be like, look, you know, there was no splicing and there was no music in the background. It was green.
I don't have a mixtape, dude. I just got whatever grandma like cut up on the VHS.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Someone
Right?
had the big,
Hopefully grandma went to this game and recorded it. That's all I got. Yeah. So it is, I've seen a lot of videos of overseas and it's absolutely like the atmosphere is crazy. What countries did you play in?
I played in a lot. So the first place I played was Argentina, and that was crazy. Actually, the league was fun, but the lifestyle was wild. I made it through all 4 years of college without getting into one fight. You know, on or off the court. Yeah. And then in my first 30 days in Argentina, I found myself in 2 fights.
Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think it was me, but nevertheless, that's a lifestyle there. So that was the first place I played. And then after that, I went to Turkey, which is probably the best place I played. There's some elite basketball in Turkey.
Turkey is. Yep. Absolutely.
Super good. And then I played in Luxembourg and Norway and Sweden and Belgium.
Wow.
Minor league NBA. Back then they called it the D League. Now they call it the G League.
The G League, yeah.
Also extremely competitive at that level. A lot of guys who don't want to go overseas because they feel like their NBA players will stay in the G League. And you know, truth be told, they probably need to go overseas because you make a lot more money doing that. It's just a difference in culture. And you know, for me, I mean, it was always a dream of mine if I don't go to the NBA that I wanted to go overseas. I wanted to travel. I thought it was cool. It was an adventure, you know, I was unmarried, no kids, no bills, you know, let's go live the dream.
Why not?
Yeah.
Right.
Let's go have fun. So it's funny how my life has been truly 2 different chapters, like the, you know, basketball and post basketball. And now, you know, and so now it's mortgages and dad. And back then it was, you know, rock star lifestyle and basketball.
Yeah. I think the thing that's carried over and what I was trying to transition into here is like, so you had that goal and you said like, I wanted to play in the NBA. Right. And then you said like, oh, you know what? If I don't make it to the NBA, it's still the goal is playing overseas, playing professionally. How important is it, especially even now, like no matter what you're doing, whether it's mortgages, whether it's real estate, whether it's sports, whether you're 16 years old, whether you're 48 years old, how important is it to have that goal that you're chasing?
Yeah. I think athletes at a high level are built different because we're pretty mentally tough. We have to be, right? Because you lose games, you get passed over, and you know, you get cut, whatever the case may be. And you have to work hard because you don't get to that level. Even if you're 6'8" like me, you don't get there without working hard because there's lots of other people who are out there working hard and you got to outwork them. So I think that translates really well, you know, to any kind of business for that matter. And so a lot of times you'll see, you know, high level athletes succeed in the business world, sales world, especially because, you know, you win and lose in this game. You got to wake up the next morning and get after it again, no matter what. Right. So Same thing with sports. You know, you could lose a game on Tuesday when you got another one on Thursday. So you got to prep and be ready for that one. So that translates well.
I was lucky enough to so growing up, especially in my high school years, I was a very big musician, very successful musician. I was in the Cleveland Orchestra, Youth Orchestra, geez, that was easy to say. Cleveland Youth Orchestra, Cleveland Youth Wind Symphony. Did quite a bit in music, and then in the later part of high school, I had multiple offers for soccer. I was a goalkeeper. I was an All-Ohio goalkeeper, and it was like the blend of both, right? And I just released a podcast on my own podcast, and I've been doing a lot of content on. I actually think that like being a musician sets you up for success in life, maybe more than sports. Like I would love to actually sit and debate it, because music teaches you to like practice, and not just practice. It has to be perfect practice. It's muscle repetition, and it's practice, and it's then for that one performance. Because whether we're a 9-to-5er, we're showing up to work at 9 o'clock and we're, just doing what we're told until we leave at 5, punching the clock, you're going to have to perform at some point in your life. Right. Yeah. And just like sports, but why I love music, I think a little bit more to help you set that up for success later in life is because you get that like one shot. Right?
You're going to be judged off of months and years of practice for one gig or one song. Yeah.
Right. One performance. And if you're late on the, whether you're playing like a triangle or you're a violinist or whatever, you're exposed. And what's nice about sports is like, just kind of like what you said, you get to wake up and do it again tomorrow, right? And you get to judge your performance, you get to critique it, you get to see where you did wrong, and then go and work harder the next day, practice harder. So it's like the perfect blend of both. I feel like has set me up to not only understand that everything we do, we're going to perform, right? A performance review. That's why they call it a performance review, right? I'm going to go into an interview. I'm going to try to better my life. I'm going to ask somebody to marry me. I'm going to, whatever it may be, you're going to at some point perform. And that's why I feel like that whole like sports, playing sports is so important growing up, because it teaches you you don't just show up and give, you're not given anything. And I think that's why, the athletes, professional athletes always go into the business world, and you see success because they're not chasing the paycheck, I guess is what I'm saying, right? They have that goal in mind of not just, so for years, it was always the NBA or it was playing professionally. Well, when you strip that all back, it was success. It was being the elite of the elite, right? It was, we call this podcast Inside the Champion Circle, right? The best loan officers are in the champion circle. And it's that goal is what gets you to wake up every single day, and it gets you to make sure that you're putting yourself in the best position possible to be the best loan officer. Yeah. And I think that's why having those goals are so important, right? If we don't have a goal, we're just waking up and we're going through the motions. And unfortunately, 95% of us, that's what we're doing. And that's why the elite of the elite, that's why the up 1% of the 1%, right? The 1% that go to play college sports, make it on to play, the 1% of those go on to play professionally. And it's because we have that goal in mind and you put in the effort. And one thing I always say, it's one of my favorite quotes in the world, is choose your hard. Because it's hard being broke. It's also hard being successful. It's hard being fat. It's also hard being in shape. It's hard being, so you have to choose which hard you want and chase after it. And if you don't have that goal, well, it makes choosing the hard really easy. I'm going to choose the hard that's the easiest because I don't have a goal in mind. So I really feel like that is why college athletes, that's why, one of the biggest mortgage companies in the world has a guy who rode the bench at Michigan State, right? And he still played college basketball. He still was able to have that goal, know that work ethic, what it takes, and put that work in. So I think you could attest to that because this industry, you can't just show up and go to work and be successful at this. Maybe some people have been, maybe we call that luck, but it is having that goal in mind and putting in the work and knowing how to practice and knowing to show up every single day and make that commitment. Because I'm sure you could go back to your 16, 17-year-old self. There was probably some times where it wasn't fun, where your friends are out going, doing this, and this, but you were either in the weight room or you're, hitting free throws or, putting up shots or in the gym while they were out having fun.
Yeah. Well, I was one of those weirdos that actually just loved it so much that I didn't care as much about what those other people are doing. So
you have to fall in love with it, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that my coach says now is like, you have to fall in love with the process. Otherwise you're not going to show up and put your best in every single day. So you have to be in love with it. And
it's funny how life changes over the years because, now, to me, I have to juggle balance with that because, when I was younger, I could pour myself into this business 100%. And, now I've got to balance that with being dad and, going to volleyball practice and, spending, the computer comes with me when this weekend, we left the house at 6 a.m. to drive out of the city to go to a volleyball tournament. You know what I mean? So that's the other things that you have to juggle, as your life priorities change a little bit, so like back in the old days, it was do whatever I need to do to succeed. And now it's like, okay, well, I got to balance that with the family life, which it's important. You got to learn that, because I think that's probably one of the biggest things I see people, especially at my age, start to do, is maybe not have that focus straight. And then you'll see people having utter success in the business world, and then their family's falling apart, or, so I think it's important that you got to be able to balance that.
Sure. Yeah, well, absolutely. This industry, people always see like me traveling, or they see the fun part of this industry. And I'm like, the best way I could describe it, being a loan officer, being a real estate agent, being in real estate, owning your own business, is you have 365 vacation days. You're right. But I also am working 365 days.
Yeah.
And you're on the phone. So I love the reels that I've seen. It's like whenever you're dating, or whenever your spouse is like in the mortgage industry or real estate industry, and they're like on a roller coaster and they're on the phone, and they're like at they're coaching their kid's soccer game or something. They're on the sideline. They're like yelling in their phone, and then they're yelling like. It is what it is. Yeah, it's a balance, but it's a blessing and a curse, right? Hey, that's great. I can work from the beach with my family, right? Like we can be on vacation.
You always got to be ready. That happened.
Sometimes Dad has to take a call.
That happened to me this weekend. I got a text from one of my favorite agents, and it was between volleyball games, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to respond. And I was like, let me just call her. So I called her fast. She's like, oh, sorry to bother you. You're not bothering me. So I started answering. I was like, listen, it's about to get loud. It's between games. So I think I probably got like 30 seconds to a minute before, you're probably not going to be able to hear me. And then pretty soon she could hear me. She's like, okay, I think I got what I need. So thanks for calling me. But see, that's just it, right? Like we can't ever really truly shut off. And it's funny you say that, because, I've been married 20 years. And in the very beginning, when we first got married, my wife's a CPA by trade. She made a lot more money than me, because I had just we got married the same year I got into the mortgage world, right? And she was actually one of the inspiring people to get me in the mortgage world. I was selling software and I hated my job. And she said, she had a friend doing mortgages. She goes, I bet you'd be good at this. You should check it out. And then, I had a friend doing it, so I talked to him, and that's back when everybody was doing mortgages, right? And for a while there, it was the wild, wild west before all the crazy stuff. Long story short, I got into the business, and in the beginning, she struggled to understand. My wife struggled to understand that when that phone rings, if I don't pick it up, someone else will, and you got to balance that. Now, I can pretty much do whatever I want, however I want. But if you don't pick up the phone when you're needed, then someone else is going to. And so, in the beginning, there was a little bit of struggle with that. But now she completely gets it, and she embraces it. And I just shoot her a look, and she's like, all right, kids, be quiet. Daddy's going to be talking for the next 2 minutes. And then, as soon as I can wrap up, I say, hey, thanks, guys. And they're like, yeah, no problem. Every once in a while, I got to remind them, like, hey, those new sunglasses I bought for you this weekend? Like, I pay for those with those phone calls that you're quiet during. And they're like, oh, okay, Dad.
Yep. I have a 5 and a 7-year-old, and they'll like, at night they want to play Minecraft or play video games or whatever, just chill out. And I'm like, hey, Daddy's going to do a work call. It's always a Zoom call. And I'm like, and they're like, how long? I'm like, 40 minutes, because I'm too cheap to pay for the full version. So they always last 40 minutes, right? I'm like, it's going to take 40 minutes. I'll try to go faster. And then they'll like, I'm like, if you sneak in, that's going to take longer. And like, Dad won't be able to, I won't be able to go play Minecraft with you. And so, and every single time, then when I'm done, it's like, hey, like, remember when I, or like Roblox, like they're big Roblox. And like, when I gave you $20 in Robux, you remember that? That's because Daddy was able to do that. And then so whenever they want Robux, I'm like, Dad, don't you have to go make a call or something? They always, now they're like making me go work. I'm like, all right, I kind of like that. A little
my daughter's like, we want to go to Hawaii. I'm like, oh man, that's a big obligation. It's a long flight. You got to stay there for at least 10 days. And they're like, yeah, well, go make some calls or something, Dad. Come on. Like,
they're our best coaches. They're the best motivators. Get out there and hit the
They're
phones.
good at
Right?
spending our money.
Yeah, well, that's definitely true. Yeah, absolutely. That's hilarious. Yeah, but it's for sure this industry. Successful loan officers find that balance. They have to,
Yeah.
otherwise it eats you up. I mean, I was lucky enough to talk with one of the top loan officers in the world, or he is the number one. I mean, he originates billions of dollars. Obviously, he has a team, but and he said he shuts his phone off at 5 o'clock every day. He spends time with his family, wakes up a little earlier than most of us, but he's like, at 5 o'clock, I'm done, and it's making sure that we have the systems in place. And I know we talked a lot about ALCOVA at the beginning, but we have we do have those systems in place where it makes it easier, where we can get back to the dinner table, or we can pay attention at soccer practice or volleyball practice or whatever it may be.
That you have to prioritize, like getting to the kids' events and things of that nature. Yeah. Because like what you always hear about, and that's what people in my age group are thinking about or should be thinking about is, what's your legacy going to be, right? Like, when my girls are older, I don't want them to look back at me and be like, oh yeah, dad was he worked all the time. He was good at work, but he never was there. Like that would crush me. And I would much rather do a few million less in volume and have them say like, my dad was always there for me. It means a whole lot. So I have to constantly remind myself to balance.
Yeah. And that's what's cool about leadership about ALCOVA. They all have families too, right?
Yeah, they completely get it. Really big family culture here. And I mean, so big, like President's Club coming up, I always am respectful and reach out to Bobby and say, hey, do you mind if I take my kids? No, man, of course. Like, they're welcome. I was like, okay, well, I got to ask.
Yeah.
With my kids and be like, what are your kids doing here? Well, there's a lot of companies that would never, ever consider that. Now, when we go to Vegas, they're not coming, but
Right.
Charleston, they can come to that one.
They can come to Charleston. Absolutely. Yeah. And let's, we'll kind of wrap it up on this. So obviously, you mentioned, so you're part of the Champions Club. So, or formerly the President's Club, but the top loan officers at ALCOVA. So I like asking this to everybody. What do you think it takes to be great? What do you think it takes to be an elite loan officer in 2026?
I think everybody has their own different thing that they can do to be great. For me, the way I operate is I said it earlier in this call, to me, it's the golden rule. And, I always treat people how I want to be treated. I try to think about how they feel. And not all borrowers are the same. I've had some borrowers that love brevity and they don't want long answers and they don't want to know the details. And I've got other, engineer types that love when I send them a chart and show them why I think this is going to happen next and, why maybe they shouldn't do this and that they were thinking, sometimes it's an age gap, right? Some of the different age borrowers require different type of touches. So you got to be smart enough to mimic your audience and understand who your client is. But the one thing that's constant is treating people with respect and putting yourself in their shoes. And, one of the quotes that I say is, I want to care about your transaction more than anyone else except you. It's your house. You're the one getting it. But I care when you lose that offer. I care about that. And, I understand that there's emotion involved there. And that's something you'll never, ever get at like a big bank. I won't call them out by name. I almost did. They don't care because they don't know who you are, right? Like the vast majority of my client base, if I took a compass and drew it around Richmond, it's going to be in that little circle. Now I do business Pennsylvania down to Florida, but most of those are either from someone who say, hey, this guy's good. He cares. He knows what he's doing. You should call him. Or like, hey, this is my brother down in South Carolina. Can you do his loan? Yes. So by referral, right? But the same is true. Like as long as you truly care about their situation, if, I go to bed early and I wake up early. Then my phone goes off around 9:30, and if you text me after that, I'm not going to see it. And I try not to text you back at 5 a.m. when I'm awake and you're not yet. But, but if you see something, you got to have a can-do attitude. Like it starts at the leadership here, the same way, right? Like they don't like to say no. They want to try to figure out a way to say yes anytime it makes sense. So we got to treat our borrowers the same way. You got a question. I always tell them, well, if you're in the process and you have a question on how things are going, the internet's an awesome place to turn for answers. But, the challenge with it, especially these days, is you can go to a reputable site and the answer could be yes, and you could spend a few more minutes and find an equally appearing reputable site, and the answer could be no. And so, like, what's the truth, right? And so I always tell them, I'm going to know 99% of the questions you ask me. And the 1% that I don't know, I have people on my team who know more than I do I can go to get those answers for you. And that's where, the structure that we have in place, with our VP of sales, I know that's it's our company term, but we have a dedicated person that there is to support us. So that way, we find ourselves in a unique situation, we get an answer, and they're real good at pulling out Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac books and escalating things to unique circumstances. Because I always say, like, loans are like fingerprints. No one is the same as another, right? So it's our job to answer the questions, give people solid advice. And then when we don't know, it's okay to say you don't know, but then go get an answer from someone who does. But I mean, to me, I can't speak to some other people, how they have success, but to me, I always just treat everybody with respect and, just give them the same respect I would hope someone would give to me, and caring more than anyone else cares. Other than the people themselves getting the house. They always get to care the most. And it's funny because my loan officer assistant and I had this conversation a while back, is if we ever care more than they do, that's a problem. And that's happened before. There's been situations where, like, we can't want it more than they do. So if they're not willing to do this or that we're asking them to do, then maybe they're not motivated enough to buy a house.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always empathetic. I'm always I put myself in. That's why I got in this industry. Because I remember getting my mortgage and having the questions that I had. And, I've actually built my business off of clients and developing relationships with real estate agents, because their clients got a closing disclosure or a loan estimate, and their loan officer's like, it's going to come in close or lower at closing. Don't worry about it. And they're like, no, I have questions, so I built my business off of, like, I remember that. I remember getting my loan estimate and it said I had to bring $3,000 to closing. And I'm like, you told me I didn't have to bring any money to closing. And, it was, oh, don't worry. Yeah, you won't. We'll balance it at the end.
Yeah.
Well, why?
What are all these line items, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And like why? Like, that doesn't, I taught my whole life not to just believe anybody that says that. That doesn't sound great. So I remember going through it, and I remember having the questions. I remember wondering why it took 60 days to get my loan closed. And I remember, like, just being in the dark and how it felt and not knowing. Like, I remember going to work and being, like, just nervous that it wasn't, I'm spending this money on inspections and an appraisal, and how embarrassing. I already told people I was buying a house and thought it was good. I just remember that and built my entire business off of it. And I think, empathy is so big in our industry, and it can be misplaced. Like you said, if they're not motivated, or if they don't care about the purchase or the process, it's a little tougher to get that closed, because, those are the kind of people that say, I'm not giving you a bank statement. You don't need to see what I'm spending my money on. And I say, okay, you don't have to. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, but then go get your own $300,000. Like, I'm not going to, yeah, pay cash. You don't have to do that. It's crazy, right? Yeah. Oh, I have your bank statement. You don't have that cash. Got it. But, so that, the empathy only goes so far. And that's one thing that I tell all of our loan officers on staff, like, you could absolutely be empathetic, absolutely care as much as the borrower does. But if somebody is, if they're not wanting to, if they're not motivated, if they're, they're like, a good way of putting it, like fly by night, or they just don't care. Well, then we kind of have to match that energy. We can't care more than the borrower. Absolutely. Yeah. That's a good point to say.
You can't.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people out there who need help, who will appreciate your level of care.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Right. All right. Well, so we'll get out of this or finish on this in a little, not so much about mortgages, but tell me why LeBron James is the greatest basketball player of all time.
Oh man. See, now you had to go off and say something like that.
Is it because Michael Jordan played against plumbers? Is that why? I mean, I don't know, and we talked a little bit about it. This has nothing to do. I don't know if ALCOVA Mortgage endorses LeBron James being, I'm the one on the podcast. We're going to say it right now, but he played against the world. He played against, his resume is incredible because of look at who he played against. Now, people don't like Listen, I didn't like it more than anybody else when he left Cleveland and went to Miami. I get it, 100%. I hated it. I hate the way he did it.
Did you
He
not like the
acknowledged it.
reality TV show that he created when he did it? You
He
didn't
was
like that?
24 years old. Like, he acknowledged, like, I did some pretty dumb stuff. Like, he couldn't even rent a car at the premium pricing yet, right? So, like, I get it. But also at the same time, it is what it is. He changed the landscape. He's the greatest basketball player of all time. And he's literally born 10 minutes from where I'm sitting right now.
Well, you may be a little biased from what you just said. And the other thing I think is, I think we're a product of our environment. Most basketball I ever watched when I was younger and playing, and that's Jordan's days, and
Yep.
his level of competitiveness is almost too competitive. I mean, if you listen to some of the stories about his teammates and all, they didn't like him, because he was savage. He wanted everything, and and he thought he was the best player on the court, and he was, and he was going to take every shot, and the one thing I will give you credit about LeBron is his durability and he's still playing at a high level. He's not much younger than me. I have to hold that banister when I'm climbing the stairs, and that man's still out running, dunking from the foul line. I don't understand how he's doing it. I guess there's a lot of technology in their business too, where he can.
And the commitment, what he goes through for his body is just insane.
He's blessed with talent and his size and genetics and shape. But like we said on this call, you don't get there by just that. It's the work ethic that you put in, and he's definitely has that. But for the record, Jordan's the best basketball player of all time, and it's not close.
Yeah, it is close. It's close. Listen, I'm telling you, it's close. But I feel like it'll never get. I think the conversation's closer than it's ever been. I think more people are starting to realize that maybe LeBron is maybe he is the GOAT. But it is also, you're right. You old folk love looking back. Well, in my day, it was so much better. So they built stuff just a little better back then.
And remember, I'm a big man. So I look back at all like the Charles Barkley and Karl Malone and, back in the real true big guys. And now all the big guys are chucking threes just like everybody else. So.
Okay. All right. So you're right. Right. So, all right, we'll tie it back to the mortgage world. Give me one little recruiting pitch to LeBron James. He's about to retire. He might have a little swan song with Cleveland next year. I would love it. That would be just so great. I would love one more time. And also, I think that's what the Cavaliers need. They need somebody who's been there before. I've always said Donovan Mitchell's not that dog. He doesn't have that fight in him because he's never gotten out of the second round of the playoffs, even his days back in Utah. So he needs somebody to take him there. I'm not sure James Harden's that guy that's going to take you there. But I would love to have LeBron back. What would be your sales pitch to come and write mortgages at ALCOVA Mortgage, LeBron? Why would he do? He's a billionaire, obviously, but.
Well, for the record, I do think he should go hang his hat in Cleveland for one final season. I think it would be fitting. And I think he'd enjoy himself doing it.
Oh, yeah.
For ALCOVA, I've never, been around for 20 years. And for the first 6 or 7, I bounced around as much as anyone else. It's funny. People tend to not stick around very long in our industry. They'll year here, 2 years there, 6 months here, 2 years there. And I've been here 13 concurrent years. Took a little 2-year break. Came in 2010, was here 6 months, left, came back a year and a half later. And I will never leave here as long as I wrote leadership a letter Christmas time many years ago and said, if you guys don't change who you are, then the recruiters call every day and I don't even talk to them because I will never consider leaving here because of what they provide to you, the honesty that they have. I've been here 13, 14, 15 years, never caught them in a lie. People aren't supposed to lie, right? But in this mortgage world, people do all the time. They'll tell you whatever, and especially, recruiting, right? Like, oh, you come over here, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. And then you find out it's not. And, our leadership doesn't act like that. And I think a lot of it has to do with where they're from. It's Southwest Virginia, man. These people are salt of the earth. And I mean that in a complimentary way. They breed work ethic and honesty and faith and, and they don't know how to lie. Even if they wanted to, I don't think they'd be capable of it. But it's just not in their DNA. And, and that stuff trickles into the way they work in their business. And then it just provides for a good platform for people like me who just want to have success writing loans and doing good business. And so it's a great relationship because I trust them and they like me, and that's why I'll never leave. So,
Yeah.
So if you want the same thing I have, then I don't know a better place to find it. And I've been around, and I've seen a lot of places. I probably worked for 7 or 8 mortgage companies in my life, and only one in the last 15 years. So that tells you about it.
You took your talents to South Beach and then you came back home. I got it. There you go.
I took my talents to Roanoke, and that's where I played my minor league NBA ball. The
Okay.
on the Roanoke Dazzle way back in the day.
No way. Okay, that's pretty cool. There you go. Well, awesome. Well,
Full circle, man.
full circle indeed. So, Ryan, I appreciate you, joining join the podcast. I appreciate you endorsing LeBron James as the greatest basketball player of all time, and I will make that a clip. We will boost that on social media. But no, it was good conversation, great insight. And where can people? Are you on social media? Can people follow you anywhere?
Yeah, the biggest place I am is on Facebook. I try to friend as many people as I meet to keep track of everybody. And of course, I've got my corporate page as well. And I make a weekly video. Every Friday, I roll a video out. I've been doing that for about 10 years. It's usually about 2-3 minutes long, sometimes about industry challenges or whatever I deal with on a weekly basis that I think the public will like. And I know it's working because people stop me every old place in the grocery store, like, I watch your videos. And I'm like,
Isn't that crazy?
cool, man. And it's free. And I just, 2-3 minutes every week, I roll one out. Repetition is key.
I can't go get groceries without somebody like, you're the mortgage guy, right? And I was like, yeah, that was me.
My daughter had a conference the other day, and I did her counselor's mortgage, and she's like, "Wait a minute, I know your name Charles. That's my dad. Your dad did my loan." So,
There you go.
you think I live in Mayberry, but yep, that's it.
Yeah. Perfect. Awesome, Ryan. Well, I appreciate you joining, and people can follow you on Facebook, and enjoy the 84 degrees, and I'll enjoy the 23 degrees tomorrow.
Yeah, man, going to jump in the pool.
Oh man, enjoy.
Thanks for listening.
This is the standard. This is the work. This is the mindset behind the results. Built, not bought, earn, not given. This is the room where leaders are different. Built through consistency, proven through execution.